Hi, folks. Please read the disclaimer. Very interesting data. This was put up by Mr. Nilesh Shah recently, and he compares the 10-year India and US. In 2014, the gap between the two was 6.35%, and today the gap has narrowed to less than 2%. What was, so wide apart because inflation was low in the US, interest rates were lower. In India, inflation was higher, interest rates were higher. And US has now been able to sort of not control their inflation, and they had to increase their interest rates. And only 1.89% difference has come. So from a relative perspective, India has really done very well in terms of managing its fiscal and monetary management. So you can see this in this chart here. The orange line is that of the US yield, which is now at 4.4%, which used to be at 2.4%. The left axis is that of the US yield. And the India yield used to be somewhere around 8.5, which has now come down to 6.3. So the tables are sort of turning, where India, with its better management, has been able to bring its interest rates down. And US, although was very near zero rates also, or less than 1% for a significant period of time, is now looking at that kind of a interest rate. So this is the gap between the two, which started at around 600 basis points, which has now come down to less than 2%. So this has a lot of ramifications actually. The biggest ramification here is that the currency should stabilize going forward. So if we were witnessing 3, 4, 5% kind of depreciation per year, I think that versus the US dollar should limit to a very small amount going forward, given that there is hardly any difference now in the two yields. Just imagine that there is a investor overseas and he wants to invest in India. So earlier he was getting much more yield for his money, but he had to give up the depreciation of his investment in terms of currency. Now the yield itself is not attractive enough for that investor, foreign investor, and also the INR probably is not going to depreciate as much to balance that out, and hence perhaps this is really good for the Indian bond market, wherein the stability of the Indian bond market, the relative position of the Indian bond market versus your market is going to make a lot of other investors come to our markets and broaden and deepen that market. These are my thoughts. You can give your thoughts in the comments. It's an interesting subject. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.